Okay, so last week we were working on peer response, workshopping one another's papers and revising papers. And as you know, this is week 5. And on Wednesday of this week, essay number 1 is due at midnight. Email me if you have any questions about that. But now we need to move on to the next assignment, which is essay number 2. You'll need to read what it says here for week number 5 thoroughly. And this video will walk you through the essay number 2 critical synthesis assignment. Here's the link for it. You can click right here. And I will download it as a Word file. And let's take a look. So this is a really straightforward paper. It is a major overhaul, a complete revision of essay number 1. In essay 1, all you needed to do was talk about what the author was doing in that particular article and the moves that he or she was making to get what they wanted from their audience. Now you're going to be using moves of your own. Instead of looking at moves someone else was making, you now need to make some moves yourself. And what it's going to be based on is your response to anything you've pulled from the article you chose to write about. Essay 1 was, here's what this guy said. Essay 2 is, here is my response to what that guy said. That's all it is. Writing is a conversation. What we're doing is we're taking essay number 1, which was an artificial assignment. No one ever only comes to terms in an essay. You're going to take what you built by coming to terms in essay 1 and turning it into a real paper by using your voice, your opinions, and your response to what your article has said by using forwarding and countering moves. That is how your voice enters this conversation. So this paper will feel much more real than the previous paper. And as I said before, I was holding your hand. Now I'm going to start letting go of your hand a little bit more in this assignment. So here's what it is. You'll be adding the equivalent of 3 more body paragraphs. That doesn't necessarily mean you just tack 3 more paragraphs on the end of the first paper. You're including what I call the equivalent of 3 body paragraphs. If a body paragraph is a minimum of 10 sentences, then throughout your paper, you are adding the equivalent of approximately 30 sentences to this new draft. It does not all have to be in the same paragraph. You could add new paragraphs, you could develop some of your already existing paragraphs, or both. Either way, you need to make some kind of deliberately chosen rhetorical moves of your own designed to have a specific effect on your intended audience. You need to know who you're writing this paper to. I'm not the audience of this paper. You need to choose an audience who cares in some way about whatever topic you're writing about. And in order to do this, you need, as you did in essay 1, you need to consult the moves handout. But rather than consulting the moves handout to try and figure out the moves your author made, because you already did that, you need to make moves of your own. How do you decide what moves to make? You need to decide, what do you want? In other words, your purpose. And who do you want it from? Who's your audience? And based on those 2 concerns, you will decide these are the appropriate moves to make to get what I want from this group of people. So I'm requiring 4 different things in this paper. And here they are right here. So you're going to be using at least two of your classmates' 10-minute write discussion posts. Okay, that will be 2 more sources you're adding to this paper, both of them from a classmate. You need to use these 10-minute writes just like you would any other source. Identify the author, talk about who they are and why you chose them, come to terms with what they have written about, in other words, summarize it, and then use that as a building block, a jumping off point into your response to what your 2 classmates have said. So be sure to identify the authors of their posts with their full names and be sure to quote or paraphrase them before you start responding to them. 2 of your classmates' 10-minute write posts, that's a requirement. Another requirement, that introduction, that terrible formulaic introduction, that fill in the blanks introduction from essay number 1, delete it, get rid of it. You don't need it anymore. That introduction was focused on the article you used in your paper, Well, now you need an introduction that focuses on what you are trying to do in your paper. So you'll need to rework your original introduction so that it provides a clear sense of your purpose and your audience and your stake. In other words, ask yourself, why do I care? Why am I writing about this? For example, an anecdote is an opening move that many writers make to accomplish this. I'm not saying you have to do an opening anecdote. I'm just saying that's an example of a kind of move writers use to open their papers with, and you might decide that's what you want to do. Your conclusion also has to go. In essay number 1, you are simply saying, here's what I might do. In essay number 2, well, go back, reread what you wrote, and use that as the outline for this paper. What will you do instead for your conclusion? Go to the moves handout, look at the conclusion moves that are listed there, and mix and match any combination of those kinds of moves based on what you think will be most effective for what you're trying to do in your paper. Think about your purpose, think about your audience. What will get me what I want from this group of people? How can I close my paper, conclude it in a strong way? Look at the moves handout. Lastly, you're going to be getting a lot of, as you know, you will be getting a lot of feedback from me on essay 1. You will be keeping some parts of that paper. You will be deleting other parts of it. Like I said, this is a major revision of essay 1. And revision means more than just putting new stuff in. It's also about making hard decisions about taking things out. So if you decide you are going to get rid of something, obviously my comments from essay 1 are no longer valid, so you can ignore them. But if you decide you're keeping something from your original draft, you need to look at what I said in my feedback to your first paper and decide how to address those concerns that I talked about in essay number 1. So that's a brief walkthrough of essay number 2. As always, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to email me or talk to me over Zoom during my office hours. So be thinking about how you're going to respond to the article you chose for essay number 1. Happy writing.